Every single day at sea, one U.S. aircraft carrier spends up to $65,000 on food, enough groceries to supply a small town, and all of it has to be stored, prepped, and cooked at sea, while jets launch off the deck above. What happens if a freezer breaks down or a storm delays resupply? The answer isn't just about food, it's about survival, morale, and mission readiness. This video reveals how the Navy turns kitchens into the heartbeat of the ship, and why feeding the crew is as critical as fueling the jets. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How many eggs does it take to make breakfast for 5,000 sailors? How many gallons of coffee need to be brewed before dawn just to keep the first wave of watchstanders alert? And what about chicken? How many pounds of it are dropped into fryers, roasted in ovens, or diced into stews every single day? These are not small numbers. To feed a vessel this size means producing close to 18,000 meals in a single day, spread out over breakfast, lunch, dinner, and something called mid-rats, or all, the midnight rations served to crews whose shifts run through the night. It's a cycle that never stops, because at any given moment, the ship is awake. On land, you can send a truck down the road to restock because supplies run low. At sea, the game is entirely different. If bad weather rolls in, or if refrigeration fails, you can't just make a quick call to resupply. The risk isn't that the food gets a little late. It's that thousands of people go hungry, and morale, efficiency, and the ability to fight can crack in less than a day. Every tray, every spoonful, every scoop of rice or pasta has to be accounted for long before it's eaten. The entire operation runs under the constant pressure that there is no margin for error. The inside of the ship is built to handle the weight. 7 separate galleys are spread throughout the decks, each with its own function, ranging from serving lines for enlisted sailors to specialized kitchens for senior officers. A bakery turns out thousands of rolls, loaves, and desserts. Massive cold rooms, called reefers, hold stacks of produce and meat with freezer units that look closer to small warehouses than kitchen appliances. Imagine the entire network of restaurants and storage centers in a small city, and then jam it all inside the hull of a single ship. That's the scale being managed here. The people running this system aren't just cooking meals. They're trained as culinary specialists, but their job description extends far beyond cooking. They enforce strict sanitation to avoid outbreaks of disease. They work through nutrition guidelines to balance calories, proteins, and vitamins for sailors operating under stressful, physically demanding conditions. And behind the trays of food, they act as logisticians, ensuring ingredients are ordered, delivered, rotated, and used before spoilage hits. This is food service as a tactical requirement, not a cafeteria. The schedule is relentless. Many work 12 hours on shift, 12 hours off, repeating daily without weekends or pauses. That constant rotation is what keeps food pouring out nonstop. Early morning means eggs cracked by the thousands, scrambled quickly on enormous flat tops, pancakes flipped dozens at a time, and bacon cooked in pans so big they look industrial. By afternoon, flour sacks weighing 50 pounds are hauled in by forklifts to keep dough mixers churning. Coffee isn't brewed in pots, but in tanks holding gallons at a time. A dark supply line that never stops trickling through mugs across the ship. And the storage problem looms over it all. Hundreds of tons of food sit stacked in chilled and frozen lockers, organized so that the oldest product is used first, and so fresh vegetables aren't ruined by ethylene gas from ripening fruit. Keeping dairy cold for weeks without losing quality is as important as storing ammunition. If the system cracks, every other system on board feels the ripple. The truth is, none of this works without strict planning. Every meal is charted days ahead, recipes are scaled to industrial size, and the manpower never drops below what's needed to keep meals flowing without pause. Feeding 5,000 sailors at sea doesn't allow mistakes. It demands discipline and constant effort to prevent collapse. But here's the question that lingers. When the ship is thousands of miles from any shoreline, where does all this food actually come from? Imagine a carrier in the middle of the Pacific, more than 500 miles from the nearest port, and the food supply stacked in the freezers is down to just a week's worth. There's no grocery store within reach, no trucks headed their way. When the shelves start to empty, only one option exists: resupply at sea. Without it, 5,000 sailors wake up to shrinking rations, dry stores running low, and the morale that keeps the ship together starts to crack. So how do you deliver tons of fresh food to a warship that never stops moving? The answer is underway replenishment. A supply ship assigned to the carrier strike group pulls alongside, steaming at 12 to 16 knots, matching speed and distance so tightly that the two ships look welded together. Steel cables swing out across the waves as tension winches haul pallets from one deck to another. At the same time, helicopters sweep in overhead, dipping toward the pitching deck with slings carrying crates of fruit, vegetables, cartons of milk, frozen meat, anything that keeps the galley running. This is not a slow transfer. It happens while the ship continues forward at combat speed, maintaining the carrier's readiness even during resupply. The danger of this evolution is constant. Weather can shift in minutes. Heavy swells send the ships rocking out of rhythm, creating the risk of snapped cables or dropped loads. Equipment failures bring the entire process to a halt. A missed replenishment cancels tonight's dinner menu and, worse, weakens the operational reach of the carrier. You cannot project power across the ocean without the guarantee that these floating grocery runs succeed. Every sailor on the transfer line knows it. If you were standing on deck during one, it would look like controlled chaos. Forklifts weave through narrow paths, scooping pallets and rushing them to elevators that plunge below deck. Overhead, helicopters hover just high enough to avoid rotor wash hitting the crew below, then lower bundles onto painted circles, marked for landing. Sailors sprint in, cut the harness, and rush the goods off the deck before the next load swings in seconds later. The entire transfer plays out like clockwork, hundreds of hands moving in precise rolls, honed through repetition. Once the cargo dives below deck, another battle begins. In the chilled reefers, where the air burns with cold, sailors stack massive boxes of beef, chicken, and seafood in neat rows. Produce goes separately, with strict control to prevent spoilage. Ethylene filters scrub the air, so bananas, apples, and lettuce don't ripen too fast. Rotation is tracked closely. Last week's potatoes need to be used before this week's to avoid waste. Within hours, the ship takes on tens of thousands of pounds of food, and the galleys begin planning the next service with fresh options. The morale impact is felt almost immediately. Fresh milk changes the taste of morning coffee. Lettuce and tomatoes restore crunch to sandwiches. And nothing is more celebrated than ice cream night, a treat that only exists when the freezers are full and running. Special occasions depend on these deliveries. Pizza night after a punishing week on station, or a 4th of July meal laid out with steak and corn on the cob. These meals carry more than calories. They provide normalcy in an environment where routine can grind sailors down. Feeding 5,000 sailors is not about comfort or variety. It is the hidden engine that allows the ship to stay at sea, launch aircraft, and operate without pause. Every tray served strengthens the endurance of the crew, and every replenishment keeps the city aboard alive. Think of the carrier not only as a war machine, but as a floating city where food is as critical as jet fuel or ammunition. Without steady meals, its power collapses from within. And if this is the effort required for one ship, how massive must the challenge be to feed an entire fleet?